Hi guys, welcome. This is Frank here, and I want to welcome you to the webinar tonight on the 3 steps to dealing with unresolved issues. Now, this is such a big topic, so I've actually brought in a bit of help this evening. I'd like to welcome Liddy Sesner, from Northern Beaches Counselling. Thank you very much for joining me again.
Thank you, welcome, and to everybody out there as well. And it's good to see you too, Frank.
Yeah, and we did our Q&A webinar. I think that was like 3 weeks ago now, so like yesterday. And so yeah, really wanted to bring you along just because you've got such an expertise in the area, and you've been doing this for a while, so you know what you're talking about. And especially when we're talking about unresolved issues, you're gonna have a lot to say. I know you are, and you're gonna help us out so much. So thank you.
You're welcome, and I look forward to it.
Wonderful. So what do you say we jump in?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Just to let you guys know, we are flying off the cuff here again, so our slides may be a bit out of whack, but we do want to keep it. We don't want to just be reading off the slides and make it all seem robotic. We do want to keep it, very real. So we are going to just talk and see whatever comes up. And of course, if you do have any questions, submit them in the box below, so that way we can help you guys out as we go along.
And comments too.
Yeah.
So if there's something that they would like to say, or even if you want something explained a little bit more, or you want to check out a little bit more about something, let us know as well, and we can expand on any of the points that we already raised.
That's it. So how you do that is right at the bottom of the page. If you're watching this on the Relationships Review website, there is a box that says Ask a Question, just at the bottom of this video. Type in your question and just click the Ask button, and it'll show up for us here, so then we can answer your question. Liddy, I just want to talk a bit about your history and sort of how long you have been doing this. I know we touched on the Q&A, but just for the people that couldn't join us on there, you've been counselling for 27 years.
Yes, longer than you've been alive.
So yeah, it's sort of very much is a dwarfing feeling in some manners. So yeah, very, very happy to have you here. And you talked a bit about the mission last time on how it's very much about reducing the alarming divorce rate in Australia these days, and how that sort of tied in. And yeah, it's just it's such a huge thing to do, and it has sort of all come up. And no doubt some unresolved issues has sort of very much come to the surface, and been the cause of that, stuff we bring from past relationships or childhoods, or what do you reckon? How does all this factor into divorce rate and relationships as a whole, and how does it stop our relationship today?
Absolutely. I mean, I often say to people that you really can't take anybody where you haven't been yourself. So my story, and I'll just give it to you very briefly so that you can understand my mission and what it is that I'm intending to do now. I met the man who I thought was going to be my knight in shining armour.
Yeah.
I was probably only 18 at the time. That was a long time ago. And we got married. I was 20. 4 children after that. We were a very wealthy couple, really, comparatively, and we did have our acre of land at Bayview Heights, and we had the swimming pool and the tennis court and a 6-bedroom home and everything that opened and closed. And we had our 4 kids there as well. And yet in amongst all of that, and I guess it was really just about me growing up than anything more specific than that, but as part of that time in having my children and being married and being the wife of a fairly important member of our community, and all that went with that, it was tough in many ways. And at the same time, I was at university studying as well, so there was lots of things going on my plate, but something wasn't okay with me. And so as part of going to university, I was studying psychology. It sort of really triggered an interest in me to discover who I am.
Yeah.
So I was then embarking on my own personal journey. I was doing a lot of my own therapy and finding out who I was and where I came from, and what things that I had brought with me that were unresolved from my own childhood. And there were plenty of things, as there are for every one of us. None of us come through our childhood unscathed. We all have, as part of our journey, to come to a point where we really need to explore what it is that we have brought with us from our childhood and the value of those things. So for me, part of that journey led me certainly to have to make a really, really tough decision, and that was to leave my husband. And in those days, I was a stay-at-home mum, so the kids basically came with me. But we left all that we had in Bayview and came down to Mona Vale, and I moved ourselves, the kids and myself, into a little fibro shack. It really was a little fibro shack. And in the interim, we actually got to rebuild, and I was sort of project manager for that rebuild. So that was very exciting at the time. But it was almost like this is what I needed to do as part of my journey. I had to actually experience starting again, because that was where my life had taken me to. So needless to say, in those days, there were no such things as couples counsellors and family court mediators. So we were very much left a lot to our own devices to find our way through. And thankfully, my ex-husband and I have come to a place of peace, which was certainly, I'm sure, reassuring for my children. But we were both certainly on an incredible learning curve in that time, and certainly on an incredible journey. But there was also a lot of pain and a lot of hurt and a lot of anger and frustration and disappointment at what could have been, should have been, but couldn't come to be. So through certainly all of that, I made a commitment way back then when I started thinking in terms of, okay, what's my specialty going to be? It was a no-brainer, really, that I really needed to work with couples, because I wanted to make sure that nobody, or at least nobody, if there was another choice, would have had the experience that I had through that really, really difficult time, and hence my mission, which is to do whatever it is I can to reduce the alarming rate of divorce in this country for couples, and even more importantly, for the sake of their kids, because kids need to have a family to grow up in.
Very much so. And it's, there was some really important points that you just hit on there when you went through your story, and thank you for sharing as well. And I think a lot of that came down to that choice that we spoke so much about on the Q&A 3 weeks ago, and it really was about doing it for yourself. And the idea that as you go through relationships, it's really about your own journey, and you meet up with another person who's also having their own journey, rather than this idea that you sort of mesh together or something, or so to speak, or you sort of you feel two halves, or as the common cliche goes. But and it's very much you're on your own path, they're on their own path, and we've each got our own problems, we're each bringing them, and we're each trying to do that. And obviously you're making your own choices as you go through that. And there is those, every single issue that we come, the typical thing where you should have been happy, or the expectations on that point where it's like, oh, why am I happy and I should be, and then but it just doesn't feel right. You've got stuff coming up for yourself, then that's obviously a choice that you make for yourself. And that is, of course, part of it. Everything is going to happen. Challenges are just going to be a natural part of life. And everything that comes up. So I think that was a perfect intro for what we are talking about, because there is so much that just comes up, when we do experience those challenges in life, which just happen to absolutely everyone. You're foolish to think that you can go through this life unscathed. One of my favorite quotes and one of my favorite teachings is don't take life too seriously. You'll never get out alive.
True.
And or said another way, so many people are acting like they're trying to get out of it alive, but no one ever has. The thing is, we're all heading down the same path in one way or another. So
is that your journey? Is that your path? That you've had your challenges, and you are coming to this time now in your life, in the work that you're doing. Is that also?
It is. It's very much in the way that it's. How can I say it? It is very much about. For so much of my life, I used to play it safe, and used to be very timid in a lot of ways. And and there was all this stuff that said, no, I want to do this, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and there's all this stuff that used to come up all the time for me. But yeah, going through this, for me, it's really about being able to create something amazing. And whether that's with people or for people or whatever the case may be, it doesn't.
And indeed for yourself too.
Absolutely.
Because that's got to be part of the journey as well.
Absolutely. And it really is something that I truly enjoy. It's, it's one thing to create it for myself and to have me celebrating the victory. But as you know, relationships just make it that much richer. So it is just an absolutely amazing way to do it.
Just like you take a holiday, it's just not as much fun when you go on your own somewhere than when you have your partner with you to share the experience with you, and not only to share the experience with you, but to share the stories with you afterwards. It is a journey that is just so much better and so much more enriching when we can share that. With somebody in a relationship.
And that's the thing. I think that's where those issues do come up for ourselves, though, is that they can obviously stop us from sharing that to our fullest extent, sharing ourselves to the fullest extent, and really living a life that we actually do want to do. So all this stuff comes up, and so what we want to talk about tonight, and what we want to obviously give to you guys, is to talk about how these issues do come up, how to identify them, and really how to overcome them, how to actually get past them so you actually can live a full life and your relationships can thrive. And that's obviously what we want to do. So, and just going with that same theme is that, those challenge emotions, they're just a natural part of life. So we do just need to make sure that they do have their day, and we do allow them to come up.
And of course, this is not just applicable to our very special relationships, but it's also applicable to our friendships.
Yeah.
It's applicable to our workmates, like us with each other. It's applicable to our colleagues, our peers, to everybody that we come into contact with. That those relationships can be so much richer when we're all in a really good place for ourselves. And that's what this is really about. It's about getting rid of all that stuff so that we can actually be
the monkey on the back, as it was.
The monkey on the back, there it is.
And it really is that sort of thing where it's so unconscious in the back of our mind, because you know how you have that one and it shows suddenly head, and you find yourself angry at something for some random reason, and you have no idea where it came from. And then you promise yourself, I promise I'm never not going to do that next time. But because it's so unconscious, because it's so deep within us, and it's so automatic for us, we just don't have time to, stop ourselves or anything like that. It's just sort of.
I was at a conference today, and one of the questions that was presented to the group was about whether or not we could actually, it was a professional conference, so whether or not we could actually be a counsellor and listen to somebody else's story without our own judgment getting in the way. And it was quite an interesting conversation in terms of those in the group who said, well, yes, we have to be non-judgmental, and others in the group, and I was one of them, who said, we are meaning-making machines. We have all of our experiences. We have our knowledge, our wisdom, hopefully, our way of looking at the world, and that is obviously going to flavour how we are in relationship, whether or not that's a counsellor-client relationship or indeed in our relationships with each other. So an interesting topic, and I'm right with you in terms of it's unconscious. We live it. We don't actually see that there is another perspective. And
we really can't change that. I mean, it is always going to be completely subjective. It's just the way it is. We honestly cannot language what it is to be objective, because no one can tell you, because if they were to tell you, that'd be their point of view.
Exactly.
So and those negative ideas, they can just sort of wait to attack, just sort of wait in the background and sort of, and even when things are going great, if you've got this new relationship, then an issue that you thought you may have dealt with in the past just sort of creeps up on you and sort of throws a curveball in the mix, and
totally
it's and the more and more we push them down, I guess, as well, is that the bigger and uglier they come back as well. So it's really, really important that we do make sure that we do overcome these. We do know what it's like to. We do know how to overcome them. We do know how to move past them.
It's like getting familiar with the monkey on your back.
Yeah.
Because until you're familiar with it, then you really can't do very much about it.
That's it. And we do just end up carrying so much of this, this stuff around with us. The common term is obviously emotional baggage. And, we do carry just all this stuff around with us. And a lot of the time we're in complete denial about it as well. It's like, I'm not taking that stuff down. I've got this backpack on me. But the truth is that you do just bring this whole heap of stuff with you, and oftentimes you bring way more than you actually ever need, or you bring stuff from your childhood that is no longer relevant for you, and it served you at the time, served you beautifully at the time, but not anymore. It's just it's just weighing you down.
Yeah, I remember listening to or actually watching a news clip. And people might remember it was some years ago when I don't know if it was the Ash Wednesday fires or the big fires in Victoria. And obviously homes were being absolutely flattened, and people would come back and there would be absolutely nothing there. And the news reporters were going into these townships and talking to the people and empathising with them in terms of the fact that they had lost so much. And in amongst all of this sort of crowd of people, one woman stepped forward, and she certainly wasn't a young woman. She would have been in her 50s. And she had a smile on her face, and the news reporter was sort of looking at her going, I don't understand.
What's going on?
And she said, here it is. I've lost my home. I have lost everything in my home. I have absolutely nothing left except the clothes on my back. And he looked at her and he said, but why are you smiling? And she said, because I get an opportunity to start again. And I just thought that was such a beautiful lesson for us to hear.
And there's so much that we do hold on to. It's just this, cool, this is the way that it needs to be.
Yeah.
This is the way that it should be. And again, those expectations of ourselves and what others put on us as well. We carry so much. And you can imagine getting to that point, when you are middle-aged, when you are 25, when you are, no matter what the age, it's just a collection over and over. It is 25 years worth of stuff just built up on how you think it should be or how you've been told it should be, and just keeps building and building and building up.
And to resolve it, I think the test of that actually comes when you're on your deathbed and you can actually accept that your life has come to an end without regret.
That's it.
And then it's not a morbid thing. It's a life well spent, a life lived and cherished, a life lived absolutely to its maximum.
Yeah.
No baggage left.
Beautiful.
Just a nice time to say goodbye.
And it is such, and with that said, the unfortunate part of that is that we only get one chance at that death. So, it's not like
unless you believe in past lives,
it's not like you do a trial and error sort of thing. But in the result of it sort of is that most people that don't allow them to actually to let go throughout their entire life. So that's obviously why we have this conversation. And we just then sort of end up living with it. You just grab so much of this stuff. Before we do get into the more, how to identify and everything, I want to talk about the coping mechanisms that we all have.
Yes.
And the most common one that, in the simplest form, is just control. So it's like, have you ever been on a plane, Lily? I'm sure you have been overseas.
Just a few times.
Yeah. So how satisfying is it when you finally get off the plane, you've got all your luggage with you, and you just grab that trolley and put all your stuff into that? It's like, I don't need to carry this stuff around with me anymore.
What's even more frustrating is when you get to the end of your holiday and you come home and you open your bag and you realise 3/4 of what was actually in the bag never even got out of the bag, let alone used or worn. But you're right, we carry it around with us like our proverbial baggage.
And we do. And we have those coping mechanisms like that trolley to help us control it, so we don't need to actually let go. It's like, hey, I might actually need to use that. So when you're packing the bags for it, it's like, oh yeah, I'll need this, I'll need this, I'll need this, I'll need this. And you think it, so you carry all this out. You have so much of this baggage.
And I love the view of this trolley because it's got the big things at the bottom and the small things at the top. So the baggage is even aligned on the trolley in some order, some form. because somebody needs to have a sense of control, even if it is just their baggage they've got to control.
And that's it. And that's it. And you know, there is so much that we do take on with us. You know, you'll see that as we do go through, there is so much that you know, that we can lose my train of thought here. There is so much that, you know, we are trying to control, that we are trying to keep track of all the time. And you know, so, and often our way of controlling it, our way of bringing it along, is our way of maintaining to be safe. You know, it's allowing ourselves to be safe.
And the funny thing is that the more we attempt to control, the more we put ourselves into a vulnerable position, and the less safe we are.
Yeah. And you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. And it really does come down to that idea where it's, sorry guys, I'm just getting a message here that maybe it's not working. So if it's not working, can you guys send, if you guys aren't going to do it, I realize this might be a bit contradictory, but if you guys can hear me, please put your name and that you actually can hear us into the question box, because I'm just getting some messages here that things aren't working anymore. So please do let us know. In the meantime, we'll keep talking, Liddy. And if this doesn't work, then, you know, obviously we'll send a recording around. So we're talking about the idea that, you know, you do take that control on, and the more you do try to hold on to it, the more it actually comes back. And it's by the very act of actually acknowledging it that actually keeps it strong, and keeps that issue, you know, holding you prisoner.
Absolutely, it holds you prisoner.
And you know, you think, oh no, I need to control it to keep it under wraps. But by the fact of doing that, that's actually what's keeping it alive and keeping it there. And
we limit ourselves so much then, because we don't give ourselves then the opportunities to just have life's experiences as they would be for us, to really be there in the moment, to enjoy what there is to offer, to expand our minds and how we are and who we are in our relationships. It becomes very stultifying, just like being in prison.
That's it. And it's, you know, there's the old idea that and there's the old idea that the walls that keep us safe also keep us prisoner. And you know, so we could keep on talking about this and you know, but I do want to make sure that, you know, you guys understand, you know, what actually causes it and how we can actually move past. So it all comes down in one way or another from pushing away, from not actually letting a feeling actually happen. And for those of you that haven't seen Inside Out is the latest movie by Pixar. Absolutely awesome movie if you haven't seen it yet. And basically this idea that joy is the sort of the principally defining characteristic of this 11-year-old girl, Riley. And she's absolutely joyful all the time. And she's got a bunch of other emotions in the headquarters, aptly named, that, you know, they sort of help Riley navigate the way through life. And joy introduces us all to anger, disgust, fear, everyone like that. But she has trouble describing, you know, what sadness's role is. And because she hasn't,
what's the good of it?
Yeah, and you know, if it just brings you down, you know, what's the point in it all? So when it actually comes to the crunch point, and when it comes to Riley to actually deal with this move that she's doing, she's moving away from childhood, she's moving away from her childhood home, she's moving right across the country in the movie. So when it comes time for Sadness to do her job, she's having quite a bit of trouble doing that. And Joy won't actually let Sadness come up and actually help Riley through the problem. She's just, you know, no, I've got to stay happy, got to stay happy. And that so much is what's always going to cause it. It's always going to bring up those problems, but because, you know, you're going to have those unresolved issues that are just trying to, you know, they're trying to help you out at the end of the day. But if we don't let them, because we're trying to stay safe in one way or another, that's where they
need to be expressed. And I think sometimes people feel that that they will become overwhelmed if they allow these emotions to be present for them. But what happens is that if they try and push them down, they will absolutely compound, and they will become the baggage of our past, unresolved and unaddressed. So it's important, I think, for all of us to be in that moment. And if it's appropriate to be sad, to be sad.
Yeah.
I guess the tricky bit then is that we actually do it in an appropriate way. So we don't just allow those feelings to overwhelm us, but we find an appropriate way to express them.
That's it.
And then, of course, there's still that baggage that needs to be dealt with, which is probably attached to what's going on for us in this moment as well.
Yeah.
So there's sort of like a double whammy there, isn't there?
and that brings an important point, you know, and it can come up from such tiny little areas as well. You know, the simplest little thing can cause an issue for you. And it really comes from you being able to accept it, to be able to let go, and to really only being able to take along what you actually need at that given time. Because otherwise, you know, it's like we talked about, we are bringing all that stuff from childhood, from past relationships.
So a stubbed toe becomes a Mount Vesuvius.
That's it.
So somebody cutting you off in traffic suddenly becomes, you know, the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you can't cope with the day afterwards.
And that's it, you know, when we talk about only taking along what you need, as in, by which I mean actually letting go of what you don't need, more importantly. And it is, you know, just letting go, yeah, okay, cool, I don't need this, you know, it is completely okay to let go of.
Just a toothbrush, a spec, a set of clothes.
That's it. And knowing that you're going to be completely all right. Unfortunately, it is that doubt, it is that uncertainty that sometimes hurts us and causes us to want to control a bit more. The sort of spiral of doom, if you will, is, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you know what, these issues are telling me to control even more, but, you know, one hand I'm saying, no, don't control. But then the issues are telling me to control, and then I'm trying to control, and then the issues just keep on coming. And the more you try to control, the more the issues come up, and it's just this keeps on going round and round and round and round and round.
And then they end up finding expression in something like anxiety or depression or
insomnia is a very, very common one.
Absolutely, insomnia or eating disorders or a myriad of mental health issues that people end up experiencing because then they are trying so hard to control what's going on in their lives.
That's it. And it becomes so hard for them to shut off to it, to go, hey, you know what? I can actually relax. You know, what is. It is what it is, sort of thing. And, you know, just allowing that to happen. You know, anytime you're forcing yourself to feel something that's unnatural and going against sort of where you want to go, you're going to sort of come up against issues. Now, I'm not saying, you know, don't go, you know, push against it, don't go outside your comfort zone or anything like that. But the acknowledgement that it is okay to be angry when you feel angry. It is okay to speak up against that injustice. You know, there are different, obviously, resourceful and unresourceful ways to deal with that. You know, an unresourceful way to deal with anger is to take it out on other people, whereas, you know, you still can express anger by showing it, not towards yourself, obviously, but, you know, punch a punching bag, for example. You know,
or find your voice. But I'm sort of feeling like I'm getting a bit of a sense here that people are saying easier said than done. So hang in there, folks. We're getting to the answers, and we're going to show you some strategies before the hour's out.
That's it. And just because I had a funny like that.
Denial ain't just a river in Egypt.
And that's it. We do just end up living and coping with it so much, and we do sometimes tend to be in denial about how much baggage we actually are taking on. And it's like, yeah, you know, looking at that huge trolley full of stuff, and it's like, no, that's not much. What are you talking about?
Exactly, that's only a quarter of my wardrobe. What are you saying?
I need all this stuff.
And the rest of it's in storage.
I need this formal suit on the tropics. What are you talking about? So before we go any further, just want to ask you guys to make sure that, you know, you guys are doing what's best for yourself. Obviously, because the nature of this stuff, it can be quite sensitive. So you guys, if you guys do need to leave, if, you know, something needs to happen for you, then make sure that you guys, you know, do what's absolutely best for you. If that is, you know, go get a glass of water and then rejoin us, or leave and watch the recording, whatever the case may be, we do completely understand, and we just want what's best for you. And the next thing we're going to ask you to do is to face some of these issues head on. You obviously cannot come to terms with them. You can't accept them if you're not willing to face them head on. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, you know, we've got to talk about our feelings. that's obviously one way, and a very, very proven way, because I'm sitting with here with evidence to that. But you need to be willing to face it. You need to have that. You need to want to actually deal with your issue. I'm sure that you've met so many people that just there's that self-sabotage going on there where they actually really don't want to, and it's like they come to you and they say, hey, you know what, this is it. And so much of that is first and foremost making sure they take that responsibility and say, hey, you know what, it is actually within my control. I can actually make an impact.
And what you're talking about is exposing or opening yourself to your own insight, and for some people that's a bit of a struggle. So there's cues and clues around us all the time that gives us some sense about what really is going on inside of us. It will be discovered in our relationships with others. It will be discovered in how we approach our work, how we approach our life.
Yeah, how we language the world, the symptoms that come up, like we were talking about before. There's constant signs that just keep on coming up for us. And
if you're still struggling with that, then ask your best friend to tell you, because if they're invited to tell you, they actually might tell you stuff that you had never even thought about before. It's a wonderful way to actually discover what really might need to be addressed within you.
That's it. And it is those ideas that you may not be able to see for yourself, but obviously other people are able to. They can say, hey, you know what, Frank, this is what's going on for you. We've just noticed this. Are you sure you're all right? And that allows for that introspection for you to actually deal with it.
And of course, that doesn't give you a carte blanche or to tell me exactly what you think of me or what you think I should be changing in me.
It's opinions at the end of the day. So.
Exactly. But I think what I often say to my clients is, but if you have a want for someone to share their thoughts or their opinions or what their impressions are of you, make sure that you actually set the table first, that you actually are clear with them about what you actually want from them, and that they are clear about that too, so that they don't overwhelm you with an encyclopedia full of their thoughts about what you should be changing, but actually they are revealing to you what's important. This is Relationships Reveal, that they are revealing to you what's important, maybe for you to know and for you to take away and have a think about.
That's it. And it is honestly having an honest conversation with someone that has your best interest at heart. So the thing is that, that's going to happen, and then you may be plunging into a completely unfamiliar world. And, that's the third thing there is that, you guys are going to lean into unfamiliar here, because once you do actually deal with those changes as well, and even beforehand, if you actually are talking with a friend, it can be so drastically different. Let's say you just have overcome an issue, you just come to accept an issue. Imagine how drastically different your life is going to be. I mean, that's going to be so different. A facet of your life that you once was defined by is just now completely gone. So, and that's where a lot of the attachment to those issues come in, because like, who would I be without it? So it is a willingness to lean into the unfamiliar, to lean into being able to be someone new.
I often say to clients that there's more than one way to win a tug of war. Sometimes we can pull against it, but sometimes we can just lean into it and let go of the rope and see what happens to the other side. They don't win.
Double dominoes.
Exactly.
Very, very cool. So if you guys have a question, please type it in the box below.
It looks like it's working. People are speaking here, which is good.
So if you do have a specific question on what we've just talked about, type in the box below, and at the end we'll have a bit of a Q&A session, and we tend to do that. So
Q&As are good.
And they are, and we'll answer any of your questions that come. So in the meantime, let's go into a little deeper and talk about identifying issues. So Liddy, do you want to talk us a bit through how we actually acquire these issues?
Yes.
Okay. Say no there for a second.
Well, I'm thinking, how much of my book do you want me to actually to go through while I'm doing this? To try and put it into a nutshell, we are all a product of whatever has happened to us up until this moment in our time. We're not just a product of today or the events of today. And of course, now we're coming to understand in terms of modern psychology that we're not just a product of everything that's happened in our own lifetime, but we're actually a product of everything that happened in the lifetime of our parents and their parents and their parents and their parents before them.
Yeah.
So there's a whole history attached to who I've become today. And we talk about genetics versus
Nature
learned
versus
behaviour,
nurture.
that whole nature versus nurture. And I think it's a bit like a pendulum swing. It sort of goes from one direction to another. But I think in terms of, from where I'm coming from at least, that both are there. I think we have predispositions to be a certain way, either in our character or in how we respond to our world. But there needs to be a set of circumstances or something has happened that creates the outcome. So the way that I sort of encapsulate all of that is into what I call script, and it comes from transactional analysis as a model of therapy that I work from. And the script is a bit like the blueprint. It's the recipe, so to speak, of how our life is going to pan out for us. And it is given to us absolutely by our parents in the first instance, as our first teachers. And then it's supported by our siblings, our families, our communities, and even our culture.
We sort of create this whole little world that sort of, and then once we actually step outside of that, we actually start to question how much of that is actually real, how much is actually that is manufactured. And you talked before about you sort of generations upon generations, and it can get to the point where if your grandfather had an issue and he didn't deal with it, so he passed it on to your father, and then you saw him do it, it's sort of just passing the issue down just another generation.
Like a hot potato.
Keep on going. And that's again why this is so important to do. You spoke about how kids can be impacted so much in their relationships. Obviously they do have that family, and it is such a huge area. I've got 4 older sisters, and I'm so much a product of them, my parents, and my friends, and just everyone around me. So it is so important that we do this so we don't burden anyone else with it. And it's not our fault that they happen, not at all, but they are our responsibility.
A responsibility for their part in it. I often have a bit of a giggle because I've got 4 siblings as well, and every now and then we come together, and for my family, for my siblings and our partners, we come together at least once a year and spend 4 or 5 days together somewhere in this beautiful country of ours. And we often spend time sharing stories now as we look back at our childhood. Obviously over a glass of wine, so some of those stories could be a little embellished. However, I often have this little giggle because I'm hearing my sister tell a story, I'm hearing my brother tell a story, and it's like, did we actually grow up in the same household? Did we actually have the same parents? But there's something else going on there too.
Yeah.
And that's my interpretation of whatever happened way back then that led me to come to this place right now about how I now remember that.
And that's it. There is so much that goes on that level. You felt a certain way, and very much the emotions that we feel in that time color, how we're going to respond to that. Again, guys, check out Inside Out. That covers it so much.
I have to get it.
So much in there. So much in there. And if you get a chance, check out the article on the Relationships Revealed blog. I just wrote an article about it, and more actually coming up. But this whole list of 9-10 articles I'm about to write for it all.
From the mouths of babes, giving you a beautiful tool to work with.
And it's really, there's so much in it, and and we talk about that. There is so much there. And then I'm just keeping an eye on the time here because we've only got 20 minutes, and we still need to go through a whole bunch of content. So let's move on. I'm sure that we're going to be able to come back to this later. There's many more articles and many more videos, many more webinars to come. So, but for the time being, let's move on. So the other two types are resurfaced, where obviously they come up, and the most common form of this is bring it back up into it from a past relationship. If a past relationship has cheated on you, if something's happened, and that hasn't been the result of something from your childhood, then that's going to come up. So you'd be very, very wary of the next relationship that you come into, and say, hey, you know what, is this going to happen? You may hold yourself back if you aren't willing to separate those two ideas.
Absolutely, and every time we have an experience, we come to a set of decisions about ourselves and about others. That's part of the script as well, about our value and about the value of others. And every time we have a similar experience, we get even a stronger belief that has already been there. It's like, well, there it is again, and there it is again, and there it is again. It only goes to show, but every time it happens, or every time I do this, or every time I go there, or
we reinforce it for ourselves.
And we reinforce it, and we reinforce it, and we make it absolutely real. That's the resurfacing.
That's it. And it keeps on coming up. It keeps on coming up. And no matter what we do, it's just, because as you just spoke of, it's so hard to separate. Hang on, how can I believe something different if this is what's happened? The only reason that's what's happened is because that's what you kept on bringing up and bringing up and bringing up. And so it is so important that we do let go of these. Number 3 on the list is trauma or experience, a defining moment that has got nothing to do with your childhood, and may obviously have happened in your childhood.
Or indeed in the childhood of your parents or their parents or their parents.
Or their parents. And it is something that, it wasn't forced on by your parents. Again, it could have been. But it's a defining moment, something drastically that happens. Just spoke about Inside Out, and for that it was moving away for the 11-year-old girl in the movie. But it can be anything from that to post-traumatic stress, which can come from war or abuse or whatever the case may be. You've obviously dealt a lot more with this than I have. How is this all playing into it? It's obviously huge.
I think it's a huge topic, and obviously it becomes the basis upon all the work that we do, either as individuals or indeed what you and I would be doing within a counselling environment. But the interesting thing about trauma and the experience of that trauma and where it then leads us, good or bad, because for me, it may be something that's happened in my life which is hugely traumatic, but somebody else would have that same experience and go, well, what are you on about? That's no problem at all. So it's a very personal thing. It is very subjective. And those experiences will be replayed over and over and over again until we expose them and until we get a better understanding, and indeed until we get until we make a better decision. I remember when my children were little, and you've probably done this too, I'd take them to the beach on the weekends, and of course when they were tiny they had their buckets and spades, and what they would love to do most is to go down right to the very water's edge and dig holes and build sandcastles and put moats around them. But they would always become so frustrated because it's like, mummy, every time I dig this hole, it all fills back in again. So it's really important then that as we start to look at those traumatic experiences of our childhood, that as we expose that underbelly, like the bottom of the hole in the beach story, we need then to have something to fill that with. So we need to, as well as expose that baggage, as well as open those cases and have a look at what's inside, we also need to have a thought about, okay, so if we're not going to take this baggage with us, what are we going to replace it with? And that's all the possibilities.
All the stuff that you do take along, what do you actually need to, it's the two extremes. You can take all this stuff or you can take nothing at all. Of course, the nothing at all is don't go with anything, not even clothes on your back. So you do need to take something. That's the important thing. So it is making sure that what you do take along is actually what's most useful for you and is actually what you do want for yourself. And at the same time, knowing that stuff that you bring along can always change as well. It's not set in stone, which, is that
So it might still be more than just the toothbrush and the change of clothes.
It can
It's okay to take a bit more than that.
If you want to take Coswell, that's awesome. Just don't believe that you're trapped with that. I think the idea is that it's...
Well, don't let it hold you back, because you can spend all of your time sort of managing your baggage and losing the opportunities that are being created for you as you're exploring your world.
That's it. And as soon as you do believe that is stuck, or you believe that is holding you back, that's when it becomes a problem. So really what we're talking about now is just, again, what we spoke so much about in the Q&A webinar, which is all just about that choice of being able to choose what you do take, what you don't take. And as you said, there's so much of it is just, all of it is subjective. And how you perceive it is going to make all the world difference when you're actually resolving the issues, because you do need to come to a place where you actually can accept them. You actually can come to terms with them. You can actually appreciate what's changed, what you've lost, what you've gained, and move beyond that. By the way, guys, I am going to make these slides available for you if you guys do want them. Do just let me know in the question box, and with your email as well, or shoot me an email and I'll send them through to you. And we spoke about before about the coping mechanism, and the main coping mechanism was control. And it basically comes from trying to control it in one form or another. We talked about joy pushing sadness away, and that's what brought up that issue. But it can happen in absolutely any different situations, and we talk about NLP. You were sharing this before about the big four, which is anger, sadness, guilt, and fear. And sort of any emotion that we have, they can all sort of come back to this.
Every negative emotion.
Every negative emotion. And I'm glad you made that distinction, because joy is up there as well, And I want to point out that joy is up there because joy can actually be an unresolved emotion as well. We can actually, stop it from actually coming up. We can force it from coming up. If we are most comfortable in one of the other emotions, then we can actually not actually allow ourselves to feel happy.
Absolutely. And it's almost like, all of those negative emotions that you've got up on the screen, particularly those big four, because everything comes back to those big four. But if we allow those to rule our life, then we don't create the space like the hole in the sand for joy to be filled in, or to fill in that space with joy and all those other lovely positive emotions like happiness and fun and love and excitement and peace.
I wonder if we could fit all the emotions onto one slide.
Well, that would be a challenge. It would be very, very, very small print.
So you guys, we want to know what's been most valuable so far. Just type in the question box for us, the comment box, and let us know what's been most so helpful, because right now we are about to dive into overcoming issues and actually how to actually deal with them. So this is the really, really meaty stuff. And so if you do have a notepad and pen, grab them out, or feel free to listen to the recording, whatever the case may be for you guys. So let us know what has been most valuable so far. And without any further ado, we are going to jump straight into it. You ready, Liddy?
I just want to say thank you to all of those who are already leaving some comments here. It really is heartening for us to know that there actually is somebody on the other side listening to us.
It's so awkward if it wasn't. We're having a great time.
We're enjoying ourselves here. It's nice to be able to share it.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much again. And yeah, we do this for you guys. So yeah, it does make all the difference that you guys come along. Tim and Steph, which is, I know, your son and your soon-to-be daughter-in-law as well, and Lara as well. Joel, I believe you're online as well. So hello to everyone out there. Let us know what's been most valuable so far, because we do want to know. We do want to make sure that we keep on giving you awesome value.
Absolutely.
And whether or not that's something that we've missed so far, or whether or not you're wondering on something that is, what do I need to do in order to get ready for a relationship, or to change my relationship? If you're single, obviously to get ready for a relationship, or if you're in a relationship, what else would you like to know? I am just looking at the time, Liddy. It's 10:02, so we are going to be going over.
Just a few.
So we may be going 10 to 15 minutes over, because we do want to make sure that we get this. This is obviously the meaty stuff. And then we want to talk to you about some of the stuff that we're doing, and also answer your questions, of course. So stick around to the end. If you do need to leave, we obviously do understand. But we will make this recording available to everyone. So let's go in. And let's not drag it out any further.
Let's go. Let's go.
All right, overcoming issues. there's 3 steps to dealing with issues, and we mentioned it before, and that's choosing for yourself. That's taking that responsibility for it and being able to actually acknowledge that you actually can make an impact on it. Facing issues head on, being willing to open those suitcases and actually have a look at what stuff you got, what have you got there from 3 trips ago, and being able to lean to that from whether or not that is, hey, you know what, this stuff is, some stuff that's really quite uncomfortable to deal with, and as you spoke about before, there needs to be something to fill back into that hole. You need to make sure that as you do grow, that there is something more, and it may be completely different. It's going to be completely uncomfortable, and well, not necessarily uncomfortable, but unfamiliar, because it won't be how you used to living. So
that's the stuff that makes life exciting.
That's the fun bit. That's the change.
It's the challenges. It's that how we extend ourselves, how we bring ourselves to that point of growth, because we don't grow when we're just sitting around, looking at our luggage. We grow when we really expand ourselves and expand the possibilities for ourselves, and to go for it.
And it's amazing actually how you feel alive when you actually do get to throw all that stuff out, when you do actually just get to let go, let loose, whatever you want to call it.
And celebrate.
Yeah, and just have fun doing it. I reckon we could just have fun, just as much fun if no one else was on the other end of the line. So
I think we would do just fine.
I think we'd be all right.
So if we're not pleasing anybody else, we can at least please ourselves.
That's it. It's all, inner mind limitations. We're not going to let turn that into an issue.
Let's keep going.
All right. So yeah, I want to talk a bit about that. So, and especially where you're coming from in doing this so much as well, having taken that responsibility and realizing you can have an impact. Because obviously, if you don't realize that, if you're waiting for something outside of you to make that change for you or to rescue you, then it's not going to happen. No. And it's yeah, you do want to sort of take us through a bit of this, because I know you've seen so much of this.
Absolutely, but I'll come back to a comment that I made right at the very beginning, which is that, trying to remember what I actually said back then. I think I've actually totally lost it.
You're on the spot now.
Now I am definitely on the spot. I had the thought in my mind and then I distracted myself. But absolutely, it is about taking responsibility for ourselves and about creating what is possible for ourselves, because if we don't embrace that, then it's not going to happen.
That's it.
So have a big picture, make it a big picture. Otherwise, we won't give ourselves an opportunity to grow. I know what I was going to say.
There it is.
There it is. What I was going to say and what I said at the beginning was...
You lost it again, didn't you? I knew what that was. That's right.
I can't believe I've just done that twice.
I just saw this look in your face. I was like, oh no.
I lost it again.
But it is just so much about making that choice. Maybe this will help.
It'll come back to me. It'll come back.
It is so much about making that choice and realizing that we always do have a choice in some manner. We don't need to take all this stuff along with us. It's not stuck. It's not stuck to that trolley. We are able to come and go as places. We are able to change it. If you do want to take your whole wardrobe with you, awesome. That's your choice. If you do want to take, you got it.
I remember.
Quick to say it.
We can't take anybody to where we haven't been ourselves.
Yes.
So for me, it's about walking our talk, or talking our walk, whichever way it goes. Walking our talk.
Both counts.
Both goes. So that I'm on this personal journey and I take this as my own challenge, because it's only as I find that peace and great okay place within me that I can actually inspire maybe, or maybe give somebody else the capacity to aspire to something great for themselves.
That's it.
They don't need to follow me or my lead or wherever I'm going. This is my journey. But hopefully just when people connect with me, they get a sense of, wow, this woman's okay in her life and I feel really very much at peace in my life, that just maybe they can get the notion that, wow, if I can set some goal for myself or some challenge for myself, that I can actually achieve that for me too.
And that's it. There is just so much there, and I talk about this in my 9 Actions for Lasting Relationships webinar, and there is really nothing more attractive in any single person than knowing that that person being completely okay in who they are. and still choosing to be with another person. That is the most attractive thing that can possibly that someone can possibly do. It's, hey, you know what, I'm completely okay with who I am, and I still want to be with you.
Absolutely.
It's not out of desperation or need, and it's important to note that coaches, counselors, therapists, we sort of get this stigma around, we're sort of rescuing, we're fixing people, or whatever the case may be, but really, we have a really quite simple job, and that's helping people realize that they have choice.
Yes.
And it really comes down to that in one way or another, and we do that through very, very, very similar ways and very different ways at times as well. But it is helping them realize that they have this choice in this matter, and you can actually make a different choice here. It's not set in stone. You can choose to see this a different way. You don't need to take this along with you. It is completely up to you.
Absolutely.
Topic that we just talked about before, you have to want to let it go, because if you don't, it ain't going to happen.
It's true. That can be very scary for some people. Very, very scary. And because it takes a great deal of stamina, of bravery to actually say, well, maybe I need to review some of this stuff and actually decide whether or not it serves me. And I give my clients what I call a script questionnaire, and if anybody wants it, just email me and I'll send it to you. But it's a series of questions that allows people to actually discover what their script says about them, and about their beliefs and about their values, what it is that they have actually taken from their growing up that may still be influencing their lives. Because when you can sort of see it out there in front of you, you can make a decision then as to whether or not some of those ideas, those beliefs, those values are actually valuable and you want to hold on to them. Yeah. And hopefully there's a lot of those. But there may be some other things that need to be either rejigged, rewritten even, or totally tossed out altogether because they just serve you no purpose at all. And as you do that, just really it's that leaning into really embracing those possibilities for yourself and going for it.
Yeah, and you're totally right. It can be really, really quite scary. It can be really, really quite scary being able to let those go, because it's, hang on, you know what? As we spoke about before, there's almost an identity attachment to that.
It's actually a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I have this little notion in my mind at the moment, and it's called the dream stealers. That the dream stealers can be ourselves, but they can be other people too. Because when you start to make changes for you, sometimes the people around you, like your family, the people that you spend most time with, don't feel real comfortable with those changes, and actually will sometimes do whatever they can to actually push you back.
And that ties in exactly what we're about to talk about, and is actually the solution to it, which is coming from that place of acceptance. It's them being able to do that, them not being able to accept it is actually what's causing them to do that. And very much so also turn that inwards. It's also being completely okay with being able to accept it. Often we'll only notice it in the people outside of us, telling it and not accepting us if we actually don't accept ourselves first. So it is sort of that, two-way mirror sort of thing, and it's, sort of always comes back to get it. So guys, ask yourselves, how, where are you holding on to unresolved issues that, perhaps it's serving you in playing small? And do you never seem to move forward because there's always some issues to do with? Is there always something there? Is there always something that you're holding on to? Are you getting something out of actually holding on to an unresolved issue? We talked about this before too, a matter of perspective. Oh, I've actually gone through this a bit faster than I thought, because we covered it all before. Matter of perspective. So as we talked about, it is all completely subjective, and your truth is the truth as far as you're concerned.
Yep.
And
yours is yours.
Yeah, and that's it. And no one can tell you otherwise. No one has a right to tell you, no, you have to think this way. And that's an idea, is that, you're talking about this dream still, is that, people sort of come up and they say, hey, no, you need to be this way, you need to do this way. And for so often, if we are, struggling with these issues, we do tend to, take those opinions from others much easier. So we'll sort of go with the flow and just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to lead them. This is the way that has to be. And we don't actually believe that we actually can choose for ourselves. So ask yourselves, if you guys are just going with the flow, so to speak, or you actually are leading you. Have you ever actually questioned who or what is actually leading you? If it is someone else and you're completely okay with that, that's awesome. Nothing wrong with that at all. Just don't be in that situation if you don't choose to be. And it is so important.
And it's okay to take baby steps.
Yeah.
A baby doesn't, get born into the world and stand up and run. It's okay to, take the time you need on your journey to acquire and acquaint yourself with what's still possible.
That's it.
So when you set goals, absolutely set them as challenges, but be okay with taking the time to actually get there as well. And like a child, unfortunately, we can't always have these same encouragers that mum and dad would have as the child's taking their first step, but we can encourage ourselves to say, okay, I can see the end in sight now. Now it's time for me to set a new challenge.
I think that once we actually do make that decision for ourselves, that help does come in one way or another as well, because whenever you talked about it, you just spoke about babies, and my little niece just popped into my head. She's 9 months now, and now we're at the point where she's standing up, so we're holding her by the hands and trying to and helping her waddle along, and so she's getting this, but there is that help that's coming there. So she's learning more and more as she's as she's watching us, as we're teaching her more and more and more. So
it doesn't have to be a journey that we take on our own.
No.
However, we can be selective in who we share our wants or our goals with, so that we actually do get the encouragement that we need.
That's it. At the end of the day, I'm Uncle Frank to Tarada, so we are absolutely able to choose. It's whether it's a very, very simple idea that a child is just going to obviously belong to their parents more than they're going to the uncle, in general cases, of course. Then or it is something when we're actually dealing with issues and help does come. So we do absolutely have that choice, and very much more so than we do now than maybe when we're 9 months old. So
True. 9 months old, we're not choosing an awful lot. However, we're making decisions. So we are making decisions about who we are and our value based on how other people respond to us. As adults, we can actually do that within ourselves and give ourselves a little pat on the back or a little encouragement to go the next step, so that we're not always seeking that approval from outside of ourselves.
That's it. And we really don't need to. I have got your questions, Lara. I will be answering in just a moment. So before we do go along, and we want to talk about, you really can't, push those issues back anymore. If you do want to actually deal with them, you do need to have to face them head on. They do need to come up. And once again, that is that choice that we were talking so much about. We spend so much energy going around these problems, and a lot of time that actually ends up being where we spend most of our time. So we never actually end up allowing ourselves to actually enjoy them.
And no more is this more evident than in relationship. We hear so often that relationships are difficult, relationships are hard work. From my perspective, I think that's all bunkum. Once you are in a really good place yourself, when your partner is in equally a good place for themselves, then relationships are as easy as, good morning, because then we have a sense of okay within ourselves, we have a sense of okay with each other, we take care of each other, we support each other, we encourage each other. And once that becomes part of our way of being, then relationships are easy.
Yeah, and it becomes so much of cool. This is just who I'm being. This is who they're being. It is so easy. The way you can obviously see those issues, if something is there to be dealt with, is when those symptoms come up that we were talking about before. If something comes up, if something doesn't feel right, if you find yourself wanting something completely different, I know there's one of the questions right in front of us is, how do you know it's an unresolved issue? How do you know when it's unresolved and you do need to actually change that for yourself? So it is when something is holding you back, when it doesn't just feel effortless. The funny thing is that the feeling of being effortless is sort of this completely very strange feeling. We're sort of always on the go. It's sort of like, how do you notice nothing almost? But it is just that idea. It is just completely okay. you know, when it is so easy to be in a relationship, when it is so easy to actually move forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Acceptance again.
Yes, you are imperfect. I am imperfect, and it's all perfect.
Imperfectly perfect, or perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect and imperfectly perfect. Either way is perfect.
Both applies. Both ways are imperfect too.
Yeah, we can have fun with that.
So again, all subjective, and it all comes down to being able to accept it. And we talk so much about it, is that often the times that, you know, we do see it come from others against us is because we haven't actually accepted it within ourselves first. So first and foremost, you guys need to be completely okay. And again, if you find yourself struggling with yourself in some way, that's a sure sign that, hey, you know what, this is actually something that I actually need to deal with. So if you don't feel completely at ease within yourself, then hey, you know what, there is stuff here. Now, with that said, you could find issues to deal with until the cows come home.
Absolutely, which you will.
And you know, that's going to be part of life. So the idea is to not, you know, dig deep down into, hey, you know what, let's find every single little thing, because you know, you may spend the next 10 years resolving all your issues from the past 25 years, and then you're going to get to 10 years from now and go, now I need to spend the next year dealing with issues that I've done nothing for the last 10 years.
It's true.
So it's not about coming to deal with, you know, any of these all of these issues. It's really coming from that place of acceptance where you are just accepting of what's going on and able to let it go. You know, it's such a simple idea, but it can be so misconstrued at times.
Nicely said.
And this is actually one of my favorite quotes. Let go or be dragged is actually an old Zen proverb, saying that, you know, the very first truth in Buddhism, actually, that life is dissatisfactory. Basically saying that life is going to be full of stuff. Stuff's going to happen.
Yep, it is.
You know, you can let go of those stuff, or you can be dragged along. You know, so if you don't want to have those claw marks in your arm by the end of the day, then you have 3 choices at the end of it, and that's to hold it in, to be dragged. Again,
so that's the tug of war, isn't it? So you can either hold onto that rope and you can get
the
dragged
bottling
straight
up the
across the
emotions,
line, or sometimes you can just let it go.
That's the bottling up the emotions, just to the point where it hurts. Release it as pain, which is the unresourceful. So we talked about unresourceful and resourceful ways to deal with emotions such as anger. Releasing as pain is taking out another person, or self-harm, or, you know, any of the other ways that sort of come up. And of course, there's that final one, which is releasing acceptance, which is just being able to let go and just go, okay, cool, it is what it is. And it is obviously easier said than done. But I don't want that to be misconstrued as, you know, that doesn't mean it's not accurate. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's not accurate. So it doesn't mean it's not possible. It is just it's come in this place. And it is really being able to simplify it in that sense. So
absolutely. And just one little point while it's in my mind in terms of a question that we've just got here about some things that are unresolved. Sometimes we just simply have to accept that this is where it is for now. And maybe something will change in the future, but maybe this is where it is for now, and this is all it can be for now.
That's it. You know, I use you mentioned it before, and I use this example often, is that, you know, it can be as simple as someone cutting you off in traffic. Now, if you choose to hold on to that, that can fester into something that, you know, affects you well into, you know, years into the future. But, you know, for most stuff, it's like, oh yeah, you know what, I heard someone yelling today, and that in itself could become an issue for yourself. But the simple act of time passing, just sort of with the million things that happen every single day, we accept most of them. You know, we're already doing it every single second of the time. It's those big things that, you know, we have chosen not to, and just have started to fester ever since childhood, ever since that moment, that have the big issues. So it is really about coming from, hey, you know what, this is what it is, and very much seeing it as all sliced bread, if you will. It's just, hey, you know what, that's it. It is what it is. And
it's okay.
Yeah. Now, you know, we obviously come from 2 very different counselling backgrounds, if you will, 2 very different training backgrounds, and we have different ways of doing it, but they sort of boil down to the same 3 steps, and that's sort of to take a step back and identify all the feelings. to really just get them out, just do a whole feeling dump. Now, whether that's through counselling, obviously talking about your feelings, or whether that's through another way. There are many different ways. There's timeline therapy, there's EFT, there's
I think in the States there's something like 450
yeah.
associated organisations or associated bodies that represent at least 450 different models of therapy.
Wow.
I think in Australia we probably have about 100 of them. 450.
So there's no shortage of it whatsoever. And once you do allow those emotions to come out, it is just about letting them play out. And to, if anger is coming up, feel that anger. If the grief is coming up, if sadness is coming up, if hurt is coming up, let them all play out. Recognize what's been lost, what's remained, what's gained. Basically come to terms with what the current state of affairs.
Yes.
And without placing any new meanings of these, except, and more to the point, more accurately, not actually carrying with those unresourceful meanings across. So obviously bring the learnings that, have come out of it, bring those with you, because they're going to serve you, but don't bring that stuff that's, coming across. And as you said before, feelings are never wrong. People can't tell you that you have no right to feel this.
It's how you express them.
That's it.
That's important.
That's it. And it's really, as long as you're doing it in a way that is respectful to others and to yourself, of course, then you're completely okay. So, and it is choosing to move forward from that new place of being. So if you don't do that, then you can sort of revert back to it, and then you sort of relapse in the simpler terms. You may want to move forward, but if you don't make that choice, if you don't actually keep on choosing to live that way, then it very often comes back and rears its head. Talk about this, the change triangle. Is this something that appears in your book, Lee? So I'm going to let you take over and talk about how this applies there.
I guess this is really just a summary of what we've just been saying in terms of the types of approaches. And thank you. This is actually in my book. So anybody out there who's actually got a copy of my book, which is Love, Lies and the Games Couples Play, and we'll talk a bit more about it in a minute. This diagram actually is there. I can't give you a page number.
I just want to sort of describe it for people, because I know some of you may be watching this on your iPhone or something like that. So first up in top left-hand corner, you got behaviours. Do you want to just do this?
Yeah, I can do this. So this is the change triangle, and I often draw this up for clients because it represents the possibilities in terms of how they might work with some of that old baggage, how they might actually clear it out. So you're right, Frank, there's a triangle, and there are 3 points to it, in case anybody doesn't remember what a triangle looks like. And certainly in one corner there is the behaviours, and that becomes an approach. So we can do behaviour modification therapy, or we can do progressive desensitization therapy, or there's just things like changing habits, doing something different, and doing it enough then to actually make a new habit, like cold turkey. Absolutely. So there's lots of different kinds of models of therapy where you can actually just focus on behaviours and make changes to your whole life simply by changing your behaviours. And I have a little adage I sometimes slip in there, which is called fake it till you make it. Sometimes it's okay just to say, okay, I'm going to put a big smile on my face even if I'm not feeling particularly happy today, and just watch what happens.
That's it.
In terms of how people respond to
Let's put an asterisk on that in the sort of fake it till you make it, more in the terms of behaviours more than the point of the centre pit, which is values, attitudes and beliefs, and in feelings. So
absolutely.
It's more okay to do that there than it is to, to fake it, to fake a feeling, to bottle those up, which is obviously the point of this whole webinar. True. It's just contradict everything.
Well, except with when we are needing to make a change, and for those who have got the triangle, you'll see that there's sort of arrows going in every direction from every direction, because if we sustain a particular behaviour for long enough, or if we sustain a special thought or a feeling, then we can certainly make change at everything else. So behaviours is one corner, and the other corner is thoughts and the spoken word. And in terms of the therapies around that, it's more the cognitive therapies. So it's the therapies that are challenging your thoughts, that are therapies that are asking you to contemplate a different way of thinking or another consideration.
Different perspectives come in and subjective reality.
Absolutely.
all that stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is a totally appropriate way to work with people. And of course, in the bottom sort of point of this triangle is this whole thing around working with feelings. And that's where pure counselling comes into its best, where we just sit and we listen from that sort of notion that a problem shared is a problem halved. That is, we express the feelings that are attached to certain experiences in our life. We actually diffuse them. We take some of the energy out of them, and we let somebody else share that as well.
And you find that the best therapies, they sort of combine an element of all three of these. It's, you know, I know when I work with clients, I focus mainly on the top two and how they're perceiving the world, a bit on behaviours, and very much in the centre of the triangle, the values, the attitudes, the beliefs. And then obviously tying back into that with the emotion and saying, hey, you know what, let's just check in with this. You know, there's no point doing all that stuff if there isn't that full change all around.
Absolutely. So values, attitudes and beliefs, that's the script stuff. That's that underlying set of messages that needs to be changed too, if change is going to be long and permanent for us. So that is the realm of psychotherapy. So psychotherapy in its purest form is really a model of therapy that looks at the childhood issues that present themselves for us. And I know both you and I love to work in this realm because while you can certainly change your thoughts, change your behaviours, change your feelings, at the end of the day, the most critical change has to happen here at values, attitudes and beliefs. The beliefs that we hold about ourselves and others, the value that we hold of ourselves and others, that sort of sense of being okay with ourselves and with others.
And so much of what we're talking about already, acceptance and everything like that, that comes so much back into that, you know, that coming from that place of acceptance allows you to come from that place from within, you know, it allows you to push outwards, if you will, onto your thoughts, your behaviors, your feelings, because you're actually coming from it, because that is a value, because that is an attitude that you do have. And those are sort of like the defining points on it. It's basically how you present yourself to the world. You know, this is obviously working from the outside in, whereas that works from the inside out, which I know is why, you know, we love it so much. You know, we want to talk about this, we want to cover the different therapies, because obviously, you know, we're talking about in the context of therapy because that's our world. But in terms of you guys, obviously, if you are seeing a therapist or a coach, then, you know, this is something that they are going to use. But for yourself as well, look at this in the terms of way of how you're actually approaching this, how you're actually making these changes. If you are just, you know, doing the fake till you make it and just changing going cold turkey, just going through behavior, there is no right or wrong behavior. It's just they all work differently.
Absolutely. And certainly, I mean, when I'm beginning some work with a client and asking them, you know, what it is that they actually want to achieve from working with me, I get them to express that in their behaviours, in their thoughts and what they would be saying, and also in their feelings. So they get a really clear picture of what that change would actually represent for them and how it would be seen, how it would be heard, how it would be felt. And what would be the underlying beliefs.
And the same thing is when we actually check in to actually start working with someone, we check in with what's actually going on the surface, what's happening with their thoughts and how they're speaking and how they're actually feeling. You know, for us, it forms an actual picture. So another thing for you guys, if you do want to have a look at those unresolved issues for yourself, have a look at what's going on in each of those levels for yourself. And you'll actually be able to see that, hey, you know what, this isn't so effortless, this isn't so easy. There is something that I'm not quite accepting that doesn't actually feel right. And that will be the sign that there is an unresolved issue for you to come across and for you there is something to come to terms with and actually accept. But let's move on so we can
let's move on
because
we're being aware of time.
And then, of course, leans the unfamiliar, you know, they're going to need to be dealt with, and it is, again, that stuff of having something to actually bring into the fold, to actually have something to actually fill in the gap.
I don't know if I can add anything more to that.
Don't need to. All right, cool.
I guess for me, it is that what you were talking about before, sort of sometimes accepting that this is just the way things are, and expressing a gratitude for it, for everything that happens in our life, because nothing happens for no good reason. Everything happens either for our joy or to teach us something So it's up to us then to open ourselves to what possibilities there are to learn, so that we can live our life the way we want it to be.
And let that be the compass for you as well. You know, if you are saying something that you don't actually, you know, feelings are coming up towards it, and you don't actually feel that feeling of acceptance, let that be the compass that, hey, you know what, something is going right here. You know what, I do need to actually change it. I do need to become grateful for something. I do need to forgive another person. I do need to forgive myself as well.
Yes.
Forgiveness
is huge.
So big.
I think something really important to remember about that is not that you would be ever forgiving anybody for their benefit. Forgiveness is for your own benefit.
Yeah.
It's not got anything to do with anybody else. It's a way of finding a release from your own need to control.
It's a way of going, hey, you know what, cool, I've come to terms with this. This is what it is, and I'm moving past it.
Totally. And not allowing it to rule me, not allowing it to be that monkey on my back, to direct my life in a way that's not helpful for me.
All right, guys, we want to know what's been most valuable so far. This has been so much content in here already. We are going to get to your questions in just a second. I know there is one that we do need to answer, so stick around. If that was you, type in your questions, type in your comments and what's been most valuable on what you'd like to know more of, what we've missed, what's been enjoyable, what's been funny. I know we had a couple of moments there. Type them in the comments box. We would love to know. We'd love to hear your feedback. If you guys do need to leave now, we do understand, but stick around because we are going to be done in 10 minutes, I swear.
We'll try.
It's absolutely...
Yes.
I know we said 10 to 15 minutes and that was 20 minutes ago. So another 10 minutes, bear with us. We are almost there, just at the finish line. Thank you so much for sticking out with us. So we want to talk about because that Train Strong came directly from your book.
It did.
And you know, there's such a wealth of knowledge there. I doubt you fit 27 years worth in there, but there is so much good stuff in it.
Yeah. I guess that book represents certainly the most valuable lessons that I've learned over the years that I've been in practice. And indeed lived a life right alongside of that. So the book is Love Lies and the Games Couples Play. So it's very much geared at couples, but the lessons are the same for us as individuals as well as for us as part of a couple. And it finds its expression in that. So this book sort of talks about scripts in much more detail. There's lots of exercises in the book as well that you can follow through, so that you can actually read a chapter and digest some of that, and then there's an exercise for you to do, which is really, and I guess the essence of all that you and I have been doing in this webinar and in all the work that we do with our clients is about giving people an opportunity to notice that there is something else in their life and what possibilities there are. So,
and it's not just theory as well. There is those, obviously, the ideas, those thoughts and those spoken words that we do need to change, but there it is the application. It's, hey, you know what, we're in this game to actually help people change. We're in this game to help people, create something different. So
and I love the way that you use the word game, which is in a very positive context. In my book, when I'm talking about games, I'm talking about the negative games. And I'm talking about the games and obviously the psychological games that we play with each other, that really only has one purpose, and that is to reconfirm for us what we've already decided.
Yeah.
Once we get rid of those games and once we get more honest with what's going on in our lives and in our relationships, once we talk through those things either with a professional in our own minds, in our own right, or whether or not we talk about it with our partners, the purpose of life is to find what possibilities there are for us. Games don't have a place there at all.
Perfect.
Other than those nice games.
The book can be found at all good bookstores. I always want to say that.
Actually, it's not. It's on all good online bookstores.
All good online bookstores. Yeah. You can find it in loveliesandgames.com/the-book for the actual paperback books.
Yes, that's a paperback.
I always get confused.
Yeah.
And the free abridged ebook. So you get a good chunk of it, and it obviously
which is probably about 3/4 of the book. People are welcome to.
So there you go. And, you know, I always love actually having the physical books. You know, as you can see, we're in my office now, so I'm surrounded by books. And, you know, and so if you do want to go there, it's lovelightsandgames.com/free-e-book. I always got confused there. And yeah, before you talk a hell of a lot more about this, excuse my language,
It's good.
On when you do your free monthly workshops. And I know this one is a Q&A on the 4th of August. That's Tuesday next week. 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from
2
now.
weeks from now.
Yeah.
At the Redfern Club in Sydney. So if you are in Sydney, make your way there. It's right next to the train station, which is so convenient. And you talk about so much. So we're doing a Q&A session, which is really awesome. I'll be there. I always love your events. And you know, you talk so much about your book. You know, you even give them one away for free to one lucky person. So if you guys are there, check it out. It's on Meetup. I'll also provide a link to the Meetup in the email. Remind me to do that, Liddy.
Thank you.
And yeah, or if you have any troubles and you'd like to do it more, just email Liddy or for myself, and we'll shoot the details. Before we go, I want to give you guys a opportunity to work with me. I offer people a free 60-minute session with me. But before that, so you can go to relationshipreveal.com.au/make the choice, all one word. And this is for an application to have a 60-minute chat with me. We have a 10-minute chat to see whether or not we actually can work together. I do that for a specific reason, Liddy, and that's to make sure that we're not wasting anyone's time. I'm not wasting anyone's time.
That's a free session.
That's a free session.
Well,
so,
that's very generous.
So we go into this, and all I do is take 10 minutes at a time. May not be 10 minutes to just hey, you know what? Let me ask you a couple of questions. Let's see if we're actually a match. What do you want to create? You know, all these different things. And then after that, if we are a match and we both get to make that choice, then I'll offer you guys a free session, and we can go from there, and we'll have a 60-minute session. The result of that is that I actually get to focus straight onto it. I don't just spend 15 minutes of the session figuring out what's going on for you. So hey, you know what? Let's jump straight into it. Let's give you an awesome day. So
I hope everybody that's even listening to this is taking advantage of that.
Thank you.
Keeping in mind that it's horses for courses, that for every one of you seeking someone to work with professionally, it'll be different people for different people.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. So, whoever it might be, and indeed if it's you or if it's me in this context, it's all good.
That's it. And it honestly doesn't matter whether or not you work with me, whether or not you work with Liddy, you work with someone else, or you do it completely by yourself. There is no right or wrong. It is, as you said, it's completely your choice. It is about doing whatever is best for you. So if that is a match for you, and as I said, we do both get to make that choice. I won't work with someone that I don't get along with. So it just wouldn't be beneficial to both of us.
Well, that's not taking care of you.
No, it's not. So and that is the core idea. So we want to just make sure that do that. And if this is a match for you, again, go to that URL and more than happy to. All right, I want to go through that really quickly because we have a question to answer, and the question is, I believe, from Lara. What can I do to resolve my relationship issues with my son who refuses to get help with me? Do I just leave it to be and hope he catches up, or persist and possibly push him away further? Liddy?
Maybe neither. I'm going to give you another possibility. There will always be people in our lives that we just don't have a good fit with. That's life. So I think the important thing is, given that he's your son, it's really important that you continue to let him know that you are there, that you are available, and that you want to have that relationship. Hope might not do it, but pushing too hard might not do it either. Yeah. So I think sometimes it's just about leaving the message, letting him know that you're not far away, and that you welcome an opportunity to speak with him, because if you don't do anything, it's possible that rift between you will grow even more. And if you push too hard, he might not be ready at this moment to actually have that relationship with you.
And that's fine. And it comes back so much to what we're talking about on all about that choice. It really is about, hey, I'm on my path, you're on your own path, and so is your son as well. So it is really about being okay with, hey, you know what, this is your choice. You know, you're not making a different decision and, you know, holding yourself back for his benefit. You know, he doesn't have that right on you. You know, no one does, no matter what the relation. It is your own community. It is your own choice. And the same way, you have no right to stop anyone else.
Absolutely.
So,
and there might come a day where you need to say, I can't do anything more with this, and you need to walk away, and that would be a very sad day. So I would certainly say, look, keep the gate open, make sure that is always a possibility, because this kid will grow up and hopefully make a new decision.
That's it. And, you know, and with that, it can be so hard to do that. You know, it's like, you know, how do I actually do that? And just the simple act of actually keeping the gate open itself can be hard, because it's, hey, you know what, I keep on putting myself out there, but you know, someone else keeps on shutting me down, and that can be very, very hurtful in and of itself. So it is about understanding that, hey, you know what, that is their choice, that is his point of view, and not taking it personally. Again, it's very hard, and there is a lot of emotions going within that moment. So it is about going, hey, you know what, this is it, and putting it out there. Say, hey, you know what, if he does, then that's awesome. If he does at any point, then I still want to. If for whatever reason whatsoever that you no longer choose that you don't want to, that's completely okay too. That's your choice. But if you, as long as you do want to, keep on putting that out there, and he can keep on coming back. He can keep on coming back whenever he is ready. The important thing is never to actually force it. You know, and we're all on our own journeys. You know, you said it yourself, when you catch up with all your family, it's you know, we all do our own different things. You may have started from the same place and you may have gotten along really, really great, but as you separate, as you grow up, you know, as you know, a young male as well. I'm assuming he's a teenager. If you could just let us know his age, that'd be helpful as well, and give us a bit of context. But for me, you know, being a teenage boy, you know, sort of, it was, you know, rebellion, this, and, you know, sort of just going against the whatever I was told, just sometimes just for the hell of it. And
certainly, and being a mum, and I have 4 kids as well, who are now all adults. I know when they were growing up, I had to start to step away from them, because I needed to open a space for them to go and find their own lives. And I mean, I sometimes counsel mothers in similar situations. You know, we have this sort of notion called the empty nest syndrome, where mothers feel that once their kids have grown up and moved on, that where do they belong then? And they've got to go and find themselves something else, which is, you know, what we really need to do.
My mum would tell you that's grandchildren.
God for grandchildren. But it can be very difficult, but sometimes it is that we need to step back and realise that those children are only ours on loan for a short time. And as they grow up, we need to send them on their way and allow them to go and find their lives separately from us. And then we need to go and find a life as well. Because in that moment in time, it's, while you're always a mum, and that child will always be your child, something else magical happens too. You become adults in relationship with each other.
And you come each other on equal terms. It's a
totally, and I love nothing more than spending time now with my adult children as adults. It's just a whole new world.
And he's 23, so he is coming, especially from that place where he is making his own life now. He is coming to this place where he is, you know, going out onto the world and making the world his own. So the last thing you want at this age, you know, I'm pretty close to this age.
Yes.
I'm 25 in 10 days, so
there you go.
So you are coming to this point, and it is about, you know, making your own. So the last thing that you want to happen at this stage, you know, male or female, doesn't matter, is you don't want to do something to be forced onto you. That's the last thing you want to do. From this stage. The more something is pushed onto you, the more we're just going to exercise that independence. So it is just about being able to do it. It is just about going, hey, you know what, you've got this, make your own mistakes, you know, it's cool, you know what, you can actually do this, you know. And you've been there before as well, so you know exactly where we're coming from. Everyone knows where we're coming from. And that is something that's so... And
sometimes you have to find your own way. And there's nothing we can do about it.
And that's it. You know, you can't, you know, just paddle the babies up and, say, you'll never get hurt ever. Nothing like that. Or, it has to be okay with, hey, you know what, go out there, do your own thing, make your own choices, see the world in your own unique way,
and learn your own lessons sometimes.
Become a completely different person so that when you catch up with your siblings 20 years from now, you can be completely different people and go, hey, you know what, were we actually in the same household? But then you also have that, they used to have that amazing connection there.
Individuality.
And, I'm sure you'll tell me that, it is so much deeper that there is, because you are completely different people now. You have this connection.
It's very different.
So rooted in your childhood, but now it is something so much more that you get to say, hey, you know what, this is absolutely amazing because we are so completely different people. You tell a story from here, they tell a story from here. You have this amazing world. Suddenly your tiny little world of the family living room gets a million times bigger.
Huge. Yeah.
And then, so yeah, it is really about allowing that to actually happen and allowing yourself and your son the freedom to actually do your own thing and to come from that place of acceptance where, hey, you know what, I'm doing my own thing and he's doing your own thing. And 23 again is at that stage where he no longer just he's no longer a kid and he's very much his own person now. So you now are talking to him about that on equal terms. That said, it's still a transition point where it's, hey, you know what, it's a bit weird seeing him. Yeah, very much so. He's still come to the terms that, hey, you know what, I'm not a kid anymore. I don't see myself as, a teenager, which is still so fresh in the mind as, hey, you know what, I'm still just a young man, still just young. He's actually come to the terms, one of the biggest things for me was actually when I actually just find myself as a man and no longer a boy. I was like, whoa. And then, I was sitting at the cafe and it's like, hang on, get out of the man's way. And I just heard, a mum tell a child, and it's like, hang on, they're talking about me.
Yes.
So, it is very much about that. He's coming and you are approaching on equal terms. So it is about allowing that, to flip it on the other side. It'd be like him telling you how to actually start to live your life and go and do this. I trust this is all making sense, and please let us know in the question box if this is helping. If you do want us to, then we're more than happy to keep on going for you.
So being mindful of time, I see there's another question there, which I can probably answer in one sentence.
Boom.
The question is, how do you know when it's unresolved in yourself? A very simple way to answer that might be just simply to say, if life for you is not as happy as it should be, when I ask you the question, how happy are you in your life, if you're not giving me at least an 8 or a 9 or a 10, I'm seeing something else coming up here. If you're not giving yourself at least an 8 or a 9 or a 10, then it's not resolved in you. It's time to actually take a look at it.
Yeah. And especially a lot of the stuff that we were talking about before, if something's coming up, it's not that effortless, and that is a sign. Just want to address this. I won't read it out.
No, and maybe this actually needs to be addressed more in more of a conversation, because I think what we're seeing here from this person who was asking about the unresolved issue with her son is that there's something more of a story here that might be important for us to actually hear more of the details of, to be really able to give a better answer.
That's it. So if you can, email myself or Liddy or both of us, and we'll make sure that you're taken care of and we do answer this question in a lot more detail for you. I trust that's all right. Let us know. Just hit a reply in there for us. In the meantime, and because we are well out of time, thank you so much for sticking around, by the way. Nearly everyone is still here that started with us, so thank you so much. So we are going to wrap up. Thank you so freaking much for my embellishes.
That's okay. Frickin's okay. It was fun.
It was, and maybe we'll sort of put a range of time next time. So we'll go from 60 to 90 minutes, perhaps.
Maybe we should, yeah. And absolutely, if any of our listeners want to have us address other issues or something more specific in future webinars, I think we might be doing this again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is such a big issue, so there will be definitely more here. So there will be many more webinars to go. I'm sure this is not going to be our last webinar together. I can't see why not.
I don't think so.
So we'll have to do something again next time. So I know you've got an event coming up, which is really, really cool. Which is all about getting relationship ready as well. So
I'm actually going to make it a 2-day event. It's going to be a big one.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to putting that out there.
And I imagine that'll be in Sydney CBD as well.
That'll be in Sydney CBD.
Awesome.
That's coming up at the end of August, but it'll go up on Meetup and certainly my newsletter. Members will be getting notification in our monthly sort of updates as well.
Wonderful. And it is so awesome that you are doing this, and there is going to be so much stuff in there. I can only imagine. So we're talking about all that stuff now. That's all stuff that's coming up. So I've got another webinar coming up, I think, soon. I do my 9 actions for lasting relationships every single month.
Definitely worth
to introduce people to all this stuff. I think we might do another one on self-love and self-confidence coming up. We may come back to resolving issues, so we can go a little bit deeper on just a little bit of issue, maybe a specific area on something. But there is so much. As a last note, guys, feel free to check out our websites. Relationships Revealed, you're obviously on the site right now, or relationshipsrevealed.com.au, or couplesjourney.com.au.
It's .com.
.com.
couplesjourney.com.
For Liddy. So and check out all the stuff that's there. There's tons and tons of articles. Again, my Inside Out ones, which I'm very proud of. They're got the 9 and 10 that are coming out, focusing just on like each one of the individual characters and focusing on the lessons that they get. So we go multi-level for all more. We can keep talking about this, but we do need to say
we're going to say good night.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, and good night, everybody. It was great to have you all here join us.
See you later.
Next time.
Bye-bye.